All right. I think we've got everybody we're going to get for right now. Okay. So I'd like to call this meeting.
Did Mr. Dockett get on?
Yes, he's on by phone. Okay. I'm going to call this June 23rd meeting of the Northfield Township Board to order. Please stand for the invocation and pledge. Well, maybe sit for the invocation and pledge, I guess. Ms. Beliger, would you like to do the invocation?
Thank you. Dear Heavenly Father, with the deepest of gratitude, may we humbly petition your guiding hand of divine providence to this assembly as also to our daily lives. And please add unto us an ever-expanding foundation of gratitude. Amen.
Amen. Time for Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the
Pledge
flag
allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America,
and
and to the republic for which it stands, one
one
nation,
under
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'll call the roll since Miss Manley's not on yet. Okay. Zelenock,
Present.
Beliger,
here.
Otto,
Present.
Chick,
Here.
Chockley, here. Dockett.
Here.
Okay, we have 6 board members and Miss Manley is tardy with notice. So the next opportunity now is for a call to the public. And so if anyone would like to speak at this call, please indicate by raising your hand and state your name and your address and keep your comments to 3 minutes or less, please. And we're happy to hear from you. And I see that Mr. Gordon has raised his hand. So go ahead, Mr. Gordon.
Hello, this is David Gordon, Halmer Road. I'd like to address 2 issues this evening. The $6 million sewer tank and the campaign for supervisor by Trustee Tawn Beliger. Regarding the tank, there are way more questions than there are answers. I have been an environmentalist my whole life, and I'm also a realist and a skeptic. I don't want the township's wastewater treatment plant polluting, but before clobbering sewer customers with a $6 million bill for a sewage tank, I'd like some facts and some answers. Not just trustees waving sales brochures from Tetra Tech, which stands to make hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars on the tank. Here's what I'd like to see. I'd like to see the reports showing the extent of the pollution that is supposedly happening now. How many gallons of raw sewage were released? How many millions of gallons dilute those supposed spills? Why have there been no complaints for decades from the downstream communities? And where are the reports from the Livingston County Health Department that are supposed to be done whenever there's an incident? Why are all the spills happening now when we didn't have any for 40 years? In 2017, Plant Superintendent Dan Willis said we had the biggest rain event in 38 years, but there were no spills then, no raw sewage released, and no issue with the state. But now it seems to be happening all the time. This to me is suspicious. The board also commissioned a $600,000 sewer plant township-wide study 2 years ago, yet you're moving forward before that study is even completed. Why? And why has the board refused repeatedly to send out the postcard and inform the residents that this is actually happening? You can't actually believe that simply holding these meetings is enough to inform the general public who are about to get hit with this big bill. This is the cart in front of the horse again. And now for the second subject, this is the campaign season, so I should say, for starters, that I'm running for trustee as a Democrat. I've been very critical of this board and the previous board. However, what I saw today when visiting Trustee Beliger's campaign website was shocking. Ms. Beliger, you are accusing public officials of corruption. Part of your platform says you will be ending the corruption in this township. Madam, corruption is a crime. It is a serious charge. And I'd like you tonight to detail what crimes you believe have been committed and by whom. Because unless you're willing to spell out those charges, you owe this board and the community a sincere apology. And lastly, you also claim to be going to preserve the rural areas. I'm now speaking as the chair of the Land Preservation Committee. You are the one board member who has made efforts to disband the Land Preservation Committee, and every single time the possibility of even minute funding for the Land Preservation Committee comes up, you are against it. You believe that donations should support all the social programs in our community. So don't pretend that you're a land preservationist. Donations aren't going to cut it. When I was serving for 4 years, I donated every dollar I made, almost $9,000 back to the community. That would buy maybe the development rights on 3 acres out of the 23,000 that we have in the township. You can't do that through donations alone. But the charges of corruption are outrageous and should be withdrawn immediately. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Do we have another one who would like to speak? I don't see any other hands up at this time. Oh, it looks like someone named Megan. Would you like to speak to us, Megan?
Yes, I would.
Okay. Please state your name and your address.
Megan Speena, 9121 Lakewood Drive.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
I also have some questions about the sewer retention basin. I was also wondering about, in January, there was a meeting that you guys had about over $1 million. I want to say it was close to $3 million in an account where basically you guys could use it for whatever. And it was specifically from the fees that you charge the users for the sewer system. I was wondering, are you guys able to use any of that money to help with the cost of this retention basin? And if you are you planning on allocating it, most of it to it, or are you primarily putting it on the residents?
Okay, thank you. Do you have another question we might be able to address later?
Not at this time.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Speena. Do we have anyone else who would like to speak at this time? Okay, I don't see anyone. Okay. We can move on to board member comments then. Do any board members want to address any of the issues from the call to the public?
I would. Dockett.
Go ahead, Mr. Dockett.
I would like to say that I agree with David Gordon, and I would support that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I believe that we don't need the pond and to start out at 3 million, and now we're up to 5 or 6. So by the time it's built, it'll be 7 or 8 most likely. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other board members? Ms. Chick has hands up. Go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to comment on Mr. Gordon's comment. I also saw it is campaign season and people are going to be pushing their platform, but I also saw another candidate who basically inferred that people were either benefiting or directly or indirectly by their decisions on the board. And I think you need to be really careful about accusing people of a crime if you don't have anything to back it up, because it could backfire on that person. So I would appreciate if people would be a little more respectful during the campaign season. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Beliger.
I just want to mention that it is campaign season and that campaign issues are not, it's not appropriate at the board meeting to discuss these. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Zelenock.
So I do have a few comments. One is, I think for Ms. Speena, we need to make sure we have adequate reserves before we would allocate any of the money to the sewer basin. Because I think over the years, we have not collected enough and to maintain maybe our, for catastrophes, or if we knew since 1988 that we were to do the sewer basin, then we should have been collecting the fees along the way, so it wouldn't be such a hit to the users. And as people know, I think it should be revenue bonds, because if my septic tank goes bad, it's not like I get to go to the township and borrow the money. And right now you're asking me to be a co-signer. So I have been objective to the fact that it's revenue bonds. As far as the postcard, I think we should look at that. I do not know why we would not send the postcard out at the same time we do the publication into the newspaper. I think that would be much more appropriate to send out the postcard at that time when we go to borrow the money, as opposed to after the referendum time period. I don't think that's very transparent to the customers, because it's after the referendum, then we're going to let them know we're going to borrow the money. As far as campaign, I disagree with Ms. Ellinger. If you are going to say end the corruption, I have worked extremely hard to take my responsibilities and make sure I did the right thing all the time. I find your accusations completely baseless and outrageous. I think you should be embarrassed to make such allegations to your fellow board members. As a board mate, I think you should actually think of resigning if that's how you feel about your fellow board members. And the people on your ticket should be embarrassed and outrageous as well. It's not acceptable to sacrifice your integrity to get elected. And the voters should take notice. We need leaders, not followers. I am outraged by your statement. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other board members who would like to speak?
Yes, I'd like to just say one thing, and it's not in the right place, but make sure that we speak and explain about the cleanup day, because it's coming very soon, and I want to make sure it's mentioned during this meeting.
Okay, thank you.
So
It is on my list, Mr. Dockett, so we can give details.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
And I have to agree with Ms. Zelenock that we should be setting aside dollars to maintain and improve our systems. It's an advanced planning opportunity so that the board doesn't incur the costs of the bonds in the future. So it's an option for making those improvements, and I agree that we should be planning ahead and doing those kind of things. But at this point, we cannot to take care of this tank issue. And a lot of that $3 million is for use by the wastewater treatment plant, and we can't just go ahead and build a tank with it. I don't know how much reserves there are there to do something like that. Ms. Otto, you have a comment.
Yeah, I wanted to agree with you in regards to the reserves. The one thing about the wastewater treatment plant, it is over 50 years old. These plants are supposed to last for 100 years, but we're getting into years where capital improvements are needed. So that's really what the reserves are for, is to address capital improvement. We do have a capital improvement plan. Mr. Gordon mentioned about a plan that we paid $600,000 for. That was for a SAW grant that we were required to submit. It was our wastewater capital improvement plan. It was also the stormwater plan back in 2013. Based on that, we got a SAW grant that helps pay for and reimburses us for any work that we do in regards to capital improvement. And basically the state's asking us to improve the plans. This isn't something that just happened. This has been going on for quite a long time. But as everybody knows, in the last year or so, the BAFs have been infiltrating our water system, and the state has been looking at each township, not just Northfield Township, but each township under a microscope. And so that's why you're hearing more and more about it. It isn't just this year that these that we haven't met our we have been cited. We have missed at least 2 to 3 times every year. We go over our overflows. So this isn't something that just is happening. It's been happening regularly on a yearly basis. Whenever there is a winter thaw, whenever we have heavy rains, this happens. So it can be anywhere between 2 to 3 times a year. So that's why we need the equalization basis.
Thank you. Ms. Chick.
Just one statement in regarding reserve funding. I want the people that are listening to understand it isn't this board that was not reserving funding for this basin. We've known about this problem since 1988. Every board since then should have been planning for this basin and putting money aside.
Exactly.
Yep. I agree. Okay. Everyone finished there. We'll move on to the consent agenda. I'd like to make a motion to accept the consent agenda as distributed.
Support.
Motion by Chockley, support by Beliger. Do we have any questions, comments on that?
Yes, I'd like to pull the manager's report out.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, go ahead, Ms. Zelenock. Your
I
question.
just want an update, Mr. Ains, on 75 Barker. I thought we asked that we have an update every week on, or every board meeting on that. Do I need to make a motion for that?
No, I can give a status report at this point. I just hadn't put it in writing. The project's proceeding. I've retained on your behalf a firm to do the survey of the property. I was able to contact the company that had the records and had done the survey back in 2001. And so because they're already acquainted with it, we should be getting that within the next week or 2 weeks. In addition, we've been working on the environmental study, providing information to the buyer on the prior environmental study that had been done and other records that we need to provide to them. I believe the agreement is complete except for having the legal description of the parking lot, and that's what the survey was about. I talked to the buyer today, and he's anticipating that we should be able to wrap things up from both sides by the 20th or so of July and close on the sale at that time.
Okay. More questions, Ms. Zelenock?
Yes, so I
I have a question when it's my turn.
Okay,
Yeah,
let's,
Mr. Dockett, this is Lenore. So, Ms. Zelenock, I have a question. So how is the development agreement going? Is that done? Are we waiting
It's done.
for the legal description of the parking lot? Is that my understanding?
That's the only thing that's lacking. His agreement to the terms and conditions, and we are as well.
I would like to interject that we also need to pass a resolution at our next meeting to allow Mr. Ains to sign the documents for the title company. And they, even though it's in our minutes, the title company apparently wants a resolution for that. So we'll have to do that at the next meeting. Okay, Mr. Dockett, you had something?
I have not heard anything about the well inspection. Here in Washtenaw County, you cannot sell a piece of property without having the well inspected. So to say that it's all wrapped up, I haven't heard anything about the well inspection. I'd like to ask the manager, does he have the well inspection?
I haven't recently had one done. I will check into it, Mr. Dockett.
How recent? If you do have the well inspection, is that what you're saying?
No, I'm
Miss-
saying it, to my knowledge, it hasn't been inspected since I've been here. But I don't know how
No.
recently it's been inspected.
Well, they're only good for 1 year, sir.
Okay,
So I mean, I just don't think that anyone ordered the well inspection. That's all I'm trying to do is help out here. I'm not complaining, but I think it's important that it may be overlooked. So I think that somebody ought to know if they got the county to inspect it.
okay, Ms. Fink knows the answer to that question, so we're going to allow her to speak now.
Thank you. The well inspection is only for residential property, so this property is exempt from that requirement for the sale.
Thank you, Ms. Fink.
Commercial property, what'd she say? Commercial property, you know?
The rules don't apply to commercial properties.
I did not know that. I stand corrected. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Ms. Zelenock has another comment.
Yeah, Mr. Ainsley, I would appreciate if you would put it in your report, because then we could not had to talk about it, and we could have saved about 5 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we have a motion on the table to accept the consent agenda as distributed. Roll call, I guess. Ms. Zelenock,
Yes.
Ms. Beliger,
Yes.
Mr. Dockett,
Yes.
Ms. Otto,
Yes.
Ms. Chockley, yes, Ms. Chick,
Yes.
and Ms. Manley's still missing. Okay, so that passes 6-0. Thank you. Now I'd like to make a motion to adopt the balance of the agenda as distributed. Do I have a second?
Support.
Support by Ms. Beliger. Okay, any discussion? Okay, roll call again. I guess we'll have to do that every time. Ms. Otto,
Yes.
Ms. Chick,
Yes.
Beliger,
Yes.
Chockley, yes. Ms. Zelenock,
Yes.
Mr. Dockett.
Yes.
Thank you. That passes 6-0. Okay, the first agenda item is the June 9th board meeting minutes.
I move to approve the June 9th, 2020 board meeting minutes.
Motion by
Support.
Beliger. Do we have a second? Okay, I saw Ms. Chick first. Okay, do we have any discussion?
Which one are we on, the 24th or the 19th?
June 9th,
Or the 9th? Yeah, okay.
June 9th minutes. Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Ms. Otto, you have a correction?
I would like to have a correction,
Yes.
and this is on page 1, under board member response,
Okay,
to do with the name of Mary Tummons. Her name is spelled Tummons.
I'm looking for that in the board member response. Oh, yeah. Tummons.
Yes.
Thank you for that correction. Anything else? Okay. Roll call. Ms. Chick,
Yes.
I have a question. I have something to say about the minutes.
the June 9th minutes,
Excuse me?
the one that we're on, Mr. Dockett?
That's correct.
Okay, then you have a correction?
No, but I want to ask a question. Page 3, midway down on the left column. The general fund should not subsidize the building department. What have we done about that? Have we done anything about that?
That's a budget issue, and it's, I mean, right now, we're just dealing with the minutes, Mr. Dockett. It's a good question for later.
Well, I have it marked here that I wanted to ask about.
Okay. Well,
Is what we're doing about the general fund. We're losing at least $5,000 a week.
okay.
So, I mean a month. So I mean I think it's been going on for a year or more, and I think it's time we do something about that. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll try to get that as we talk about the budget. Okay, so we are on a roll call vote to adopt the June 9th minutes as amended. And I just called on Miss Chick. She said yes. Miss Otto? Oh, you're still muted.
Yes.
Okay. Miss Beliger?
Yes.
I vote yes. Miss Zelenock?
Yes.
Mr. Dockett?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That passes 6-0. Okay, June 16th minutes.
I move to adopt the June 16th, 2020 special board meeting minutes.
Okay, thank you. I'll second that.
I see one minor correction.
Okay, please state it.
On the front page, on the right column, it says 6. Amended motion carried 6-0, 6-1.
It would have been 6-1, provided everyone is here. It looks like they were. Okay. Good catch. Any other corrections?
I'd like to say something about that meeting.
Mr. Dockett, is it a correction to the minutes?
I would like to speak to that meeting. At the June 9th Northfield Township board meeting, we voted to approve the budget with no pay raises increases for the office employees. Last Tuesday, June 16th, this board held a special meeting. The board approved a 19% increase, which amounts to $8,821.70 annually. The rate of pay is $56.22 per hour. This is for the part-time controller. I voted no because in my opinion, this is a discriminatory policy. That's why I voted no. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we are voting now to adopt the amended minutes of the special meeting of June 16th. Chockley, yes. Chick?
Yes.
Beliger?
Yes.
Otto?
Yes.
Dockett?
No.
Zelenock?
Yes.
Okay, that passes 5-1. Okay, next.
I move to approve the payment of the open bills, the expected check run date of 6/24/2020 for a total of $54,589.80 from all funds in the municipal investment fund account.
Okay, good. Do we have a second? I'll second that. Okay. Do we have any discussion?
I got page 1, bottom of the page.
Okay.
Contract services, about the 4th line up from the bottom. Whitmore Lake Public Schools reimbursement for crossing guard at E. I don't know where E is, East Shore or whatever it is. $3,000. I thought that was strange. I called. I can talk to Bill Wagner. Bill Wagner said that he has to now start paying for school crossing people. I just thought it was interesting to know this. and we, of course, there hasn't been any school. So I said, well, there hasn't been any school. How come we paid for the crossing? He said, well, it's the same as the people that work for the township. Everybody got paid. We got to pay for the crossing guard, even though there was no school and the crossing guard didn't work. So we're out $3,000 on that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Wagner, would you like to speak to that at this
Yeah,
point?
I did send an email out this morning or this afternoon. I can't remember, kind of explaining it, and I had planned on addressing it in my board communication, which would be next meeting. So if you, I guess if you have any other questions, we are obligated to make sure that there is a crossing guard in place for schools. We're not the only police department. All police departments in the state are responsible for that. The school came to me last year and brought it up, and I said, and I did do some research and found out that we are indeed responsible for that. And while the school did not invoice us last year for it, I think with the budget situation at the state, the school is probably scrambling to try to make sure they can get everything covered that can. And so they did let me know before they sent me the invoice that they would be sending it. So it is something we will have to budget for in the future. This isn't the only thing this employee does for the school. And so they had to break it down for that portion of what she does. So that's not her total compensation. She does other things. And we could go out and hire and train our own crossing guard, but I think it's probably a much better situation just to reimburse the school for it. They already have the training in place. They have the person in place. And so we're just basically reimbursing the school that $3,024, I think it was.
Okay. Are there any
Is
questions?
that for what? How long is that, for a year, or is that for a month, or what? What is? I mean, what's the 3,000 cover? How long a time?
I'm gonna say it's for the full year. But
Okay.
I'm gonna get back with you on that just to confirm. There was another supporting document that came with the invoice, but I want to look at that, and I will get back with you on that, Mr. Dockett.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
Any other board members have questions for Mr. Wagner? Okay. And you have money in your budget for this, Mr. Wagner?
Yes, we'll make it work.
Okay, thank you. Okay, all in favor of approving the payment of the open bills? Otto,
Yes.
Chick,
Yes.
Beliger,
Yes,
Zelenock,
Yes.
Dockett.
No.
Okay, Chockley, yes. That passes 5-1. Okay, thank you.
Madam Supervisor,
Yes,
I would actually like to make a motion at this point in time that I would like to, going forward, include the invoices for the planner and the attorney for our future open bills.
what does that mean?
Well, I'd like to see when the open bills come before us and pardon me, when we see the $8,000, when we see the $8,000 for the planner or the attorney bill,
Mm-hmm.
I would like to see the corresponding invoice with our open bills so we don't have to ask for it.
I think that would be good.
I'll support.
Okay. I don't have a problem, but anybody that wants to look at all of these things in the office can sit and do it.
Understand that? I think
Pardon?
we have approximately, we're spending 100,000 for each of those items, and I would just like to see more detail on that, and so I'm making that request.
Okay, so this is for the planner and the attorney.
Correct.
We can have that included
Thank
with
you.
our open bills in the future. Do you feel we need a motion for that?
Yes, I do.
Then, okay, you're making
I
a
okay with it.
motion? And did someone second? Did you make a motion and did someone second? And
I'll second.
I think Ms. Chick
I
seconded.
Ms. Chick seconded. Oh, okay. Any more?
Did you get it? Did you get a second?
I
Yes,
did.
Zelenock and Check.
Okay.
Chick.
So
Okay, so we have discussion on this item. Ms. Chick.
I think, and tell me if you can do this. I don't think it's a big deal if you can just attach the invoice because I think we asked that those invoices be detailed. So just put in a copy of the invoice along with the budget. I mean, the basic bills.
Right.
Okay. Motion to include the copy of the invoice. Okay. Ms. Beliger, did you have some
I
comment?
think Janet may have answered my question. Would it be just simply a copy of the invoice?
Okay.
Yeah.
That will save a lot of time.
Okay.
That's what the motion said, include the invoice for the planners and the attorney with the open bills.
Okay.
We're voting on what Lenore
Yes.
wants.
We have a motion by Ms. Zelenock to include a copy of the invoices for the planner and the attorneys with the open bills.
Okay, that's what Lenore wants.
Yes.
Okay, fine. I'm with her.
Okay, would you
I'm
like to
for
vote? Would you like to vote, Mr. Dockett?
I'll vote yes.
Okay, Ms. Chick,
Yes.
Ms. Zelenock,
Yes.
Ms. Otto,
Yes.
Ms. Chockley, yes. Ms. Beliger.
Yes.
Okay, 6-0. It passes.
I've been wanting that kind of clarifications for many months. And certainly from the planner and the attorney both.
Okay. Next item is resolution, no. Yes. No, it's yes. It's a
Number 4.
resolution 2624, fiscal year 2019 budget. Where are we?
And number 4,
Yep, I'm looking for it.
for the budget amendment.
Number 3. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, RE amendment. Oh, here we are. But it'd be amendment number 3 instead of number 2. Okay. Okay, I'll make a motion to approve budget amendment number 3.
Support.
Okay.
What is number 3? We already had it, didn't we?
No. We've had 2 amendments and this is our 3rd one.
But it is confusing because it's coming after item number 3, Madam Chair.
Oh, is that the problem? Okay,
So it's a resolution to include the budget amendment.
okay.
The bills were number 3, weren't they?
The bills were number 3. Now we're on number 4.
There you go.
Yeah, okay.
And number 4 is the budget amendment.
It's the budget amendment, yes.
Okay.
So we have a motion by Chockley and support by Beliger. Do we have discussion on this item? Questions that need to be answered? We do have Ms. Starbuck here if there's any items.
I just, Madam Chair,
Go ahead, Ms. Zelenock.
well, I just want to say, asked my questions and Ms. Starbuck answered them, so I'm fine
Yes.
with that.
Okay, thank you. And I did appreciate getting a copy. And
Well, I just never know who to send it to, so I always usually send it just to the originator.
sure, and that was totally fine.
So I'm okay with it, that there were a couple corrections. May want to state the corrections.
Yeah.
Thank you for that email with those adjustments and corrections.
So that the public knows what they are.
Yeah. But anyway, the document here is pretty complete at this point. So if there's no more discussion.
There is.
Oh, okay, go ahead, Ms.
So I did have a discussion with Ms. Starbuck, so we do have to make sure that, I know we missed our December 1 and then we were going to catch up and then coronavirus. So we do have to make sure, I think we had discipline to make sure that we do the budget adjustments, especially when there's big dollar amounts.
Yes.
Yeah. It's one thing, you do the 1,200, 800 and stuff, but when there's a couple in there, especially when we knew about Lieutenant Green, that maybe we should think about the process and make an exception and make those big dollar amounts maybe the month after they occur, so they don't, get forgotten. Not that they would, Starbucks wouldn't forget them, but I must admit, after doing it, you think that it goes in there, and I just think we might want to think about dollar amount where we actually make that budgeted adjustment at the next month. I don't know if Ms. Starbuck has a comment.
Yeah, Ms. Starbuck. There you go. Oops.
The only comment I would say is that, and hi, this is Yvette Starbuck, controller speaking. The only comment I have is that we don't always receive the details ahead of time. So while we knew the Lieutenant Green situation was coming, the details didn't reach me until after we would have made that December amendment. So I'm happy to keep the schedule for quarterly amendments. And yeah, I appreciate the comments and any other questions.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions about the amendment? Okay, we'll have a roll call vote then. Dockett.
Yes.
Okay, Zelenock.
Yes.
Chick.
Yes.
Otto.
Yes.
Beliger.
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. So 6-0 passes. Thank you.
Could I'd like to make a motion that that the meeting does not extend past 10 p.m. this evening with a 9:30
I
evaluation
support.
remains.
Support. Support.
Thank you, Wayne.
Okay, so Ms. Beliger has a motion and Mr. Dockett has seconded her motion. So my comment is that if we want a quick meeting, we cannot dawdle and do all of the talking to excess that we tend to do. And because we have business to take care of here. So I will be voting no, just because I don't trust this board to be considered.
Well, why don't we call the question? We don't need to get browbeaten.
Yes, we will call the question. Okay. So Ms. Beliger wants to.
Come on, Mr. Dockett, I have a comment.
To end the meeting at 10 with a 9:30, we can do evaluation at 9:30, please.
Okay.
I have a comment, Mr. Dockett. It's Miss, Chockley running the meeting. She has to make sure she has good control. So we achieve the objective. Come on now.
Okay, so we have a called question. So, all right, roll call.
What is? Can we read back the? What are we voting on?
The motion is to end the meeting at 10 p.m. with a 9:30 evaluation on what remains at that point. In other words, the meeting will end by 10 p.m. By 10 p.m. will be done.
That means that we extend at 9:30, or what does that mean?
We reevaluate where we're at 9:30.
What does that mean? Then we extend past 10?
Hopefully not. Maybe evaluate what's priority and needs to be addressed.
Okay. Well, if we're voting on ending the meeting at 10, I'm in.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, Beliger.
Yes.
Chick.
No.
Otto.
No.
Chockley, no. Zelenock.
Yes.
And we don't have Miss Manley here, so
It failed.
Fail.
It failed.
Was
Did you get my vote?
Okay, that was yes. So Dockett was no. No was yes. Beliger was yes. Zelenock was yes, and the other three of us were no. So it failed. Okay. Next item on the agenda is the budget.
What was my vote?
You voted yes to stop it.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay.
It's hard for me to understand on the phone. I'm sorry, but I just want to make sure. Thank you.
Okay, I would like to make a motion to approve the L 4029 tax rate report for the 2020 millage request to the County Board of Commissioners.
Support.
Motion by Chockley, support by Beliger. Do we have any discussion on this item? It shouldn't be. Oh, Ms. Zelenock, go ahead.
I was talking to an individual yesterday, and so I just want people to understand that from a township perspective, we don't charge a lot of taxes. Right? A lot of the taxes come from Washtenaw County, and most of them are millages. So people need to be aware of that. And, the tax bills going out in summer are basically you'll pay the Washtenaw County proper fee to handle the treasurer, the clerk, the kind of the overall, and that is not voted on. And then you're going to see the state education tax for most people, and that's a 6 mil. County is around 4 mils, and then the SET is 6 mils. And then depending on what community you are for schools, South Lyon school taxes come in the summer, Ann Arbor splits it between summer and winter, and then the rest of the taxes in the winter for the Wetmore Lake and Dexter schools. So I just want people to realize, because again, with the conversation I had with them, the township as a proper is not charging the majority of the taxes. So it comes from your school taxes, your county taxes. So just be aware of that. And you will see that in the what we call the L4029, which is the authorization for the treasurer of the township to collect the taxes. So I just want people to be aware of that.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Any other comments? Okay. Roll call. Chockley, yes.
Are we on number 5?
We are on number 5.
No.
Thank you.
Yes.
Tax rate.
Yes. Taxes. Yes. Chockley, yes.
Okay.
Dockett? What do you vote, Mr. Dockett? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Otto,
Yes.
Chick,
Yes.
Zelenock,
Yes.
Beliger.
Yes.
Okay, and I voted yes, so we are 6-0. Thank you. Okay, number 6.
I move to adopt resolution 20-625, the General Appropriations Act adopting fiscal year 2020 to 2021 budget.
Motion by Beliger, support by, seeing no hands, I'll support that. Okay, discussion. Do we have, Ms. Zelenock, go ahead.
Yes, we got discussion. Gotta find my discussion.
Okay,
So anyway, I just let you know I'm not going to approve the budget. I understand that we have to approve it by the end of the month. I
okay,
just think I've heard for the last 4 meetings how we just have to prove it as is, as is, as is, as is. It's not good enough for me. We should revisit the budget quarterly anyway, but the constant as is, I don't think that's the way to do a job. So one thing is the issues I think I brought up were this community center grant numbers to make sure that they were correct, because that's going to be a $35,000 hit to the budget when it comes. When we move it, even though I understand that it's in the current budget, but that's going to hit us 35,000. The SAW grant, I wanted to know where that number was between the revenue we're going to see and the expenditures, and that didn't happen. Where I see that the increase in 75 Barker happened for the sale, I don't know where the other side of the costs went. The 12,500, I'm not sure where that went. So again, I just don't think it's good enough. I think we need to take this seriously, get it done, revisit it when we do our quarterly budget amendments. But I have heard for 4 meetings, just pass it as is. So, and there's another thing I have here is, first of all, I have been certainly very critical of the manager position. I think that we need to get more performance out of that position. The township manager's salary is about 10% of our budget, around 115,000. We need to get a return on that investment. My perspective, we are not. The last straw for me was when the manager during the pandemic said he spent 8 weeks at home and realized he was essential. During this time, the chief, the police, fire, medical, rescue were all performing their duties. The office staff came in to do their jobs, payables, signing checks, cash receipting, disbursements, elections, building and assessing. That's what we need. Those are essential. However, Mr. Ains was not, and it tells me he is not essential because the office ran without him. So I know Ms. Beliger, Ms. Otto, Ms. Chick, you voted for him. Pretty much at this time, you extended his contract within 45 seconds. I'm asking, how are you going to hold him accountable? How do we get the return on our investment? I don't see it. I've tried, but I'm one member and I didn't vote for him. So therefore, I would like to make a motion, and even in his memo, Mr. Ains said he gave us some facts or some numbers that it would cost to terminate his contract. So basically, I would like the permission to talk to our attorney to see what it would cost to terminate his contract during different timeframes. So therefore, I am making a motion that the board investigate terminating the township's manager's contract.
Do we have a second?
I would like to ask a question. This is not because I'm on the phone and I can't hear exactly right or understand it. But are we saying that we are going to do it, or this is just a study to see if we're going to do it? Can somebody tell me it?
I would like to make a motion to investigate the termination of the township manager's contract.
I second that.
Mr. Dockett.
I second it.
Okay, so Ms. Zelenock makes a motion to investigate terminating Mr. Ains' contract.
Just to see what we're going to get, yes.
That's correct, Mr. Dockett.
The cost to, do we have any discussion on her motion? Ms. Beliger.
I'm curious if this is the location to make such a motion. We already have a motion open to approve this budget act. So I don't know if this should be, her motion should be separate from this action here, or if it should be embedded inside this one. That's my concern. I don't know if it's inappropriate based on we already have this motion open and it's not directly discussing this particular current current motion. That's the question.
Okay, maybe we can ask our attorney that. Ms. Otto.
I think it has to do, there's more questions that have to do more than with just money. It has to do with tasks. It has to do with responsibility. It has to do with, this was a position that we put into place. And even as one board member could have put disciplinary actions against a manager if they thought that they were not, their performance was not appropriate. So saying that you were just one board member out of the 7 that did not vote for him, it's a good excuse, but it isn't, you're still not being responsible. And we have to look at it. You just can't look at it by dollar amount. You have to look at it at the whole thing. And there's more to it than just a dollar amount.
Okay, Ms. Chick.
Yeah, actually, I had the, Ms. Beliger stated what I was going to say initially, that this is a budget discussion, and if we're talking about any termination of anybody or a contract, that probably should be had at a different time. I'll possibly put it on another agenda, but to me, it feels like a knee-jerk reaction. I don't like this person. I want to get him out. And let's do it right now. And I think this takes a lot more discussing and planning as opposed to just making a motion and voting on it now out of the blue.
Okay, Ms. Beliger.
One more thing I didn't think of at the moment is that a review has been delayed, and I understand both. There's 2 reviews coming up, one for the manager, one for chief. And perhaps this is something that should be could be, as far as performance, obviously that's what a review is about. So I, I, I would ask that the motion made by Zelenock perhaps be, what do you say?
Withdrawn?
Yeah, withdrawn, I'm sorry. And then we continue on with this budget discussion.
Okay, Ms. Zelenock, are you willing
First
to?
of all, I'm not withdrawing my motion unless Mr. Dockett would like to not second it. Second of all, responsibility and accountability. I have been asking for responsibility and accountability throughout this hiring. The last time you hired the manager was during the budget discussion in 45 seconds without a performance review. So now the rules change depending on how you want it. Censuring them, good luck with that. Actually, so I do think it's appropriate time to talk it. It is not a knee-jerk responsibility. And if the 4 people that hired him think he's doing a good job, go for it. I do not, and I have not. Do not think we're getting the accountability or the job done. And yes, it has been frustrating. So the 4 of you voted for him. I do expect you to hold him accountable. He may listen to you and not me. But again, you approved his contract during the budget discussion in 45 seconds. I'm asking to look to investigate, not approve, not terminate, and give some thought into it, unlike the 45 seconds to approve it a year ago.
Okay. So Ms. Zelenock has a motion on the table, and we will vote at this point. So the motion is to investigate what it would cost to terminate Mr. Ains.
And the support was by whom?
Mr. Dockett.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So, Ms. Otto.
I would like to amend it to include more than just the cost. Or else I will vote no.
Well,
So my answer is no.
Okay, let's get this part of it over with.
If it's only cost that we're looking at, then the answer is no.
Okay, so no, I'll vote no. Ms. Chick?
No.
Ms. Beliger?
No.
Ms. Zelenock?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Dockett?
I thought there was a friendly amendment added.
No,
No, she
Nope.
didn't.
there was not. So how are you voting, Mr. Dockett?
Yes.
Okay, so we have 2 yes and 4 no, so it failed.
And I will remind you what the motion said, was to investigate terminating the township manager contract.
Mhm.
It had
Okay.
nothing to do based on just cost.
Okay. I think that's a good item to bring up at another discussion and in association with the evaluation. So
I agree.
we can do that in the near future, hopefully. All right, we're back to the budget. So items that need to be discussed, Ms. Starbuck added some items that I remembered that the board wanted changed. And it's difficult to get it all just so while taking notes at a meeting. And we didn't actually have motions necessarily for all of that. So I did the best I could with giving her the updates, but we do have the opportunity to do an amendment in the next few months, and it should be easy enough to fix the budget. So we have a
I
motion
had just a
by
comment before
Chockley.
we go.
Oh, sorry. We had a motion by Chockley and support by Beliger, I think. Too many papers.
Yes, I believe so.
Okay.
And I just had a quick comment.
Okay, go ahead, Miss Otto.
I think what's disconcerting is our last meeting, we spent a good amount of time identifying changes, identifying corrections, and then we get the budget again and it's the same thing. So I guess that's one reason why I think that when we look at the budget, we're wondering why are we approving the same thing when we could have it last meeting.
Okay, well, there were a couple items, and Miss Starbuck is here to answer to why we didn't get the grants switched over and some of those.
Well, it was as easy as putting a memo in there and we didn't.
The memo lines should be in there at this point.
They aren't.
Which one are you looking at?
The one that's in my packet.
Okay, did you get the new one?
I did not, I'm not printing off a new one. If I've gotten a new one in my box.
You got a new one. It's in your box and you got an email with it. So that should have.
So the problem being is I don't know how many revisions there are.
Mhm.
And the one I accept is the one that's in my packet.
Okay, well, Ms. Starbuck, would you like to come on and explain the situation? Ms. Starbuck?
Hi, so I guess I'm unclear on the question. Jacki, can you restate, please?
So what I wanted to understand is that we went through, and it could be because I have the wrong version. Because I took the version that's in my packet instead of printing off another version that was emailed to us. I wanted to know why the corrections weren't made. We requested a memo description. We talked about the revenue for 75 Barker being at 112 as opposed to 100,000. And then identifying where those costs would be under expenditure. And I'm just not seeing that.
So I was not in attendance at that meeting. So what happens is I receive instruction from the supervisor and the manager. So I was emailed a document with the changes that needed to be made and I made them. So I can address any questions specifically on numbers, but as far as decisions that have been made, those should be directed at Steve Ames.
Okay. So one of the ones, if you go on and take a look at the document that you've got where it's highlighted on page 2, and you see that it's the 6/18/2020 version. So unfortunately, a lot of you don't have that physical packet because it came out late due to some difficulties.
What page are you on?
I'm on page 2 of
The top of the page.
yeah, where you see
Now,
it's
has
highlighted.
this been posted to the website?
I believe it
Our
has.
public has a copy of it as well, because then
I can look.
we're talking about a budget that that the public doesn't have.
I'm looking on the website right now and I can view the packet and it's here. I believe I'm looking at the correct one. So there is a version posted for this meeting.
Okay. So the public would have the correct one. It'll say revised as of 6/18/2020 up at the top. On page 2, where it used to be $100,000 has been budgeted for the sale of 75 Barker. 100,000, now 112.5 is now in there.
Okay.
Ms. Zelenock brought that up at the last meeting. And as far as the costs go associated with that, the expenses, I didn't know that we have, the ability to do that really quickly. So, and maybe Miss Starbuck could have, but she needed to get that information from the manager or myself. And I didn't have that. So we can amend it later. We will, because we'll want to take that money, any expenses out of the Barker Road Fund, which is disappearing soon. But anyway, so that was one change that was made. Then there was the grant. I asked Ms. Starbuck if we could move the grant money over like the board wanted to do from one fiscal year to the next. And we discussed that. So I'm going to let Ms. Starbuck speak to that issue.
So, part of the challenge with moving the grant funds from one year to another is that we don't, if I'm understanding the question is on grant income or is it on grant expense? We're talking about the play path,
No, well, no, we're talking about the community.
the community
Mhm.
development block grant. So the
No,
problem
the
is,
community center.
Mhm.
right, that it's a development block grant. It's a CDBG grant, right? So the challenge that we have in our system is that accounts payable invoices can come in after the fiscal year ends. And so if invoices come in later and we change the budget to reflect what's in now, we can be in violations of the Appropriations Act. And so I advise Marlene to not change the current year budget because it doesn't hurt us to keep it in the current year budget, but then to amend next year's budget to reflect the actuals. So this is just to try to keep us in compliance for our audit, that we don't do that. What I am also suggesting is in the future, I'd like to see changes in the accounts payable process so that we can get a little tighter on our invoicing so that we can have more accurate numbers at the end of the year and that our budget can more closely reflect actuals. But as of right now, this happened to us with the non-motorized path. We reduced the budget at the end of the year, and then we ended up having more things come through after the fiscal year ended, and that took us out of compliance. We got a ding on our audit. So I'm happy to talk to anybody about those details at any time.
Ms. Otto?
Then on page 17, there was $2,500 that was asked to be removed because it's not an expense this year. And it's still on the revised budget.
Okay. That was for the 4th of July. That was a confusion about which year it shows up in. And
It shows up in fiscal year 2021. And so for 4th of July next year, it will be in 2022 budget. Because it happens after the 1st of July.
Okay. And we didn't do it this year. Well, we can move that. I mean, we can remove that, but it's only $25.
So it's almost like we're repeating these things over and over again. So we're going to have another meeting to go through these things again.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, Ms. Starbuck was not able to attend the last meeting.
And we had notes on it too. I mean, that's what my concern is didn't these notes get to her? Didn't our minutes get to her so that she could review it?
Well, I don't know what the minutes actually said, so about
So
those things.
can
Ms.
I say
Starbuck,
something?
go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. The
Yes.
minutes aren't often ready by the time I have to revise things to get into the next week's packet, which is why I rely on the township manager to give me that information. And as I mentioned, Marlene did send me her notes, and those are the only notes I had. So, I don't receive the minutes in time, unfortunately. So I'd
Okay.
ask Mr. Ames, Steve, did you have those in your notes? The changes Jacki's mentioning?
I believe I do, but I couldn't say for sure. I don't have my notes in front of me from last meeting.
Okay. Ms. Chick, question?
Yeah, I'm back on page 2. On the very first line, it says state shared revenue has been cut by 25%. Is that a precise figure or did we estimate?
That's an estimate. So Mr. Ames can speak to that.
Go ahead, Mr. Ames.
Well, as I had mentioned to the board several times, the state is predicting that there'll be a 6% cut approximately in the revenue sharing for this coming year. But the state also makes a point of saying that that's subject to change based on the economy and based on the situation with the coronavirus and pandemic. And so what I had recommended to the board was that as a precaution that you consider putting a higher amount in as the loss of revenue. Now all that does is that if the money is not taken away from you, it'll go into your regular accounts. And if it is, you have enough money in the fund balance, and the board had also said to allocate the money from the Barker Road sale, that you would not need to cut anything else to do that. So it's the impact is basically whether it's in one account or another. It's not taking away from any other accounts, and it's just saying that this money is a dedicated reserve.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, are there any other comments or concerns about the budget? Most of the stuff is minor that we can correct as we get better data. So, seeing no hands, I guess I would like to take a vote on the budget. So, Beliger,
Yes.
Chockley, yes. Otto,
Yes.
Chick,
Yes.
Zelenock,
No.
Dockett.
No.
Okay, thank you. That passes 4-2. Okay. The next item is the COVID-19 safety policy.
I move to approve the COVID-19 safety policy.
Okay,
What number are we on?
Number 7.
number 7.
Okay.
Okay, so we have a motion by Ms. Beliger
I'll support.
and support by Ms. Chick to adopt the COVID-19.
I have a question. Is there any adjustments or amendments that could be potentially made with I understand the governor had another statement today that she made that may affect this?
Mr. Ains, I'll let you speak first, and then in case you know something I don't.
No, I get the statements direct from the governor's office, and I didn't see anything come in today that would affect this program.
Okay. All right, I'd like to provide a comment then. That the Executive Order 115 does state that you're supposed to wear a face mask indoors. And this one only strongly encourages people to do that. I don't find that being consistent with what has been provided by the governor. And on page 3 of
What
the.
page was that, Miss Chockley?
Which page?
Yeah, that you talked about. You just
do you
said on
want
the face mask. What page was that?
There's pages, it's a couple.
Page 5.
On
Thank you.
page
At the
5,
bottom.
it says residents and visitors for the safety of employees. It is highly encouraged that residents and guests wear a face mask when doing business in the township buildings. So that's not consistent with Executive Order 2020-115, where you actually have to wear indoors, you need to wear a face mask. So highly encouraged doesn't get there for me. And so I would like to say required or must wear. So, and then at the end also, we also have a problem where it says on page 8, it says residents and visitors, consultants, board and commission members, and all other parties will be offered PPE. And it says all of these individuals are highly encouraged to wear a mask or other type of face covering. That's not consistent with the executive order. So and since I had this issue with it, I did try to get a hold of Stacy Belial and ask her about it. And it said, this is exactly what she's texted me back. Order 2020-114-1G states that employers must require face coverings to be worn by employees when employees cannot consistently maintain 6 feet of separation from others, and consider face shields for those who cannot maintain 3 feet separation. And a prior note that I said, Stacy, I'm looking at the COVID procedures that Steve sent, and I'm having an issue. Please call me RE the recommendation to wear a mask indoors instead of the requirement to wear it. And then she said, I agree with your position, though, that the order requires masks. It is not a recommendation or optional. So that's what we're getting from our labor attorney. And I would like to change that to where it's required and not just a suggestion. Ms. Chick?
Yeah, the other one I saw in there was that employees, when they're sitting at their desks, don't have to wear a mask. And that office area is very tight and they should be wearing masks at all times. So maybe, I don't know how hard it is talking on the phone, but they should be wearing masks all the time.
Okay. Ms. Otto, did you have something too?
Yeah, I was gonna make mention to number 3 as well, as because if you're not social distancing 3 feet apart from desks or workstations, they should be required to wear masks. And I was also gonna ask 2 things. One having to do with screening. Are you screening the people coming in, at least employees, to make sure that they don't have temperatures, that they don't feel, I mean, there's like 4 or 5 questions that you can ask. I know when Bill had us walk, you know, if we were walking into the building, we were asked questions. We were also given a thermometer, you know, had the distance thermometer to see if we had a temperature. And then the next thing I was going to ask is disinfecting. I understand that the employees are responsible for disinfecting their areas and everything, but there should be a requirement to where we do deep cleaning like every other week or something, so that we don't have problems in areas where it's common areas that we have issues with.
Okay. So perhaps we can get Mr. Ains to answer these questions. Did you have some more questions to add to that, Ms. Chick?
Just a comment real quickly. I also feel that we shouldn't be bringing visitors back into the office, that if anybody, it should just be employees in the office. And if they want to talk to residents outside of the lobby or even outside in the park.
Okay, Ms. Zelenock?
I was wondering what the protocol was for having the public use the public restrooms. How and when would they be cleaned, or how does that happen?
That was my concern.
Yes.
In the
Someone uses it. I mean, I'm thinking it's their building. They're paying for it. I don't think we could deny them. I don't know. But what's the protocol? And to Ms. Chick's about wearing face masks, I would say that would be, unless you have you're able to close your door. I think if you close your door, you shouldn't have to wear a face mask. So that would be one there.
Okay. Okay.
Go ahead. I have more, but.
Oh, no, go ahead, and then we'll have Mr. Ains address them.
So I think one of it was on page number 4 at the bottom. It's just said the custodial staff cleans the lobby, hallways, office, elevator, and restroom frequently. What's frequently? I know before this happened, it was twice a week. I wasn't sure if that has been changed or not. Then on that page number 1, it says employees will receive direct communications on how to protect themselves. Is that through an email, or I'm not sure what that was. And
I'd like to hear what Wagner's got to say about this.
yeah. And then, yeah, I think that was my one question, Mr. Dockett. Did Mr. Wagner, is it similar to his rules? Did he look at it? Number 3, it says the mask must be worn if the employee is able to medically tolerate the face. What happens if they don't wear them?
Yeah. Okay.
So
Yeah.
I think that was, I was just confused when you go to number 6. It's like all these things. I mean, about, well, do this, but doesn't it say like in number 7, anyone with a fever will be sent, okay? So wouldn't it be like, if you have any of these conditions, why wouldn't we just send you for a test? instead of like stay at home for 14 days, do this, do that, why wouldn't we just say, as it says on number 7, page 3, and page 7, number 3, anyone with a fever will be sent for a rapid COVID-19 test. And that would be not allowed to return. Why wouldn't that just be if you don't feel good, instead of sending you home for 14 days, why wouldn't we send you for the test? So those were my thoughts. It seemed like, oh gee, which one do I follow? I'm thinking, if you don't feel good and you have the symptoms that, fever, shortness, let's send you for the test.
Okay.
Those were my comments.
Mr. Ains, can you come on and address some of these things?
Yes, I've been listening to the whole discussion.
Okay.
First off, when the state said that you were allowed to open, we had to immediately issue certain directives. But we have 14 days from when you opened on the 15th of the month to have in place a plan that would meet their requirements. And it is subject to change as you go along and you find different areas that are not what you have in mind. What I have done in this process is I have consulted with the publications by the governor, by the CDC, by OSHA, by my OSHA, and I've also contacted one of the other communities, which I had mentioned before in an email to the board, and that was the city of Westland. I followed their protocol on a lot of these things. They're a bigger community, but they also have attorneys that are looking over all this. And also ran this past both sets of attorneys here, both the labor attorney and Mr. Fink's office. And so at least at that point, I was getting feedback that this was acceptable at this point. Now, I believe the reason that it says that you're strongly encouraged is because there must be a provision that you're allowed to do that, but we are not letting people back into the main office without going through the protocol. We do have a sign-in sheet with a particular file for each individual, and then we have a general one for visitors. We're using the same exact sheet that the chief was using for reviewing his people and our people when they came in the building. We have posted at that location the CDC list of conditions that you're supposed to look for. In addition to that, the chief had bought one of the fogging machines, if you remember. He was having the building professionally cleaned on both sides during this period of time until he got to the point where he felt like we could do it ourselves with that unit. And so he has been taking care of that for the entire building. The custodial people are doing the cleaning, and part of that involves how much we are doing with no meetings in the upstairs. I haven't emphasized the cleaning of the restrooms or those areas because nobody's using them except for the one tenant. And in terms of the public restrooms, we just have the one restroom that's off the main corridor. The entry into the lobby, although we opened it up, we moved the furniture around, we blocked off different ones so you couldn't be within 6 feet of it. We also marked on the floor 6 feet distance. If we have a public meeting at some point, as long as the governor's orders are in effect, we will have to take the temperature like we are with our employees and have the questions asked of every person that comes through the door. So if you have 10 people at a meeting or 50 people, you'll have to have staff that will be able to do that. I guess without going further, this is like the budget in the sense that it's a start because you have to have a plan in place, and it is subject to modifications as you have things that go on. I have placed an order for some of the shields that go between desks and particularly the traveled areas in the main office. Those are in order and apparently ended up being delayed for some reason. Jennifer had checked on. So we are looking at that. We have the mask available to give to people. But I think what you're going to find is people coming in the lobby are not all going to have a mask, and they're not all going to accept you giving them a mask. And then it's a question of, can you enforce making them have a mask, or tell them turn away, but we won't provide the service? And that's a legal question too that I've discussed with the attorneys. So there's a lot of different things involved with it. I guess I thought I'd spend a lot of time on this, try and get it ready for you, and that it was pretty complete. But if there's these suggestions you want me to look at, talk to the attorneys about, whatever, I'd be happy to do so.
Well, I think it's easier to loosen up than tighten up after you've had a problem. If we get an employee in the office with COVID-19, what happens to the rest of the office? You know, are they required to now quarantine also? So it could be very difficult, and I'd like to be consistent and require that people wear masks when they're in the office. If their doors shut, that's to me a different issue. They're not sitting next to someone, but I would like to err on the side of caution. We don't have that many employees. Should one or two of them get sick, we're in trouble. So anyway, I would like to amend this to say that it's required that people wear a mask, unless of course they have some sort of a inability to breathe or something like that, consistent with what the governor says.
Is that a motion, Ms. Chockley?
We do need to pass something tonight here, so.
Is that a motion, Ms. Chockley?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to change that masks are required.
I'll support.
Okay. motion-
Unless you're not behind a closed door.
Unless you're not
Right.
behind a closed door, yeah.
Support, or
Okay.
Otto can.
Okay, motion by Chockley, support by Otto, to wear masks, and visitors and consultants and board members, unless they're the only one here or behind a closed door. Okay, any more discussion on that one?
Yes,
Okay, go ahead,
this is
Mr.
Dockett.
Go ahead, Mr. Dockett.
I wonder, did anyone run it by the attorneys to know if, if it's legal to force them to do it?
Yeah.
I'm in favor of it, but I just want to know why isn't it? It seems funny that it hasn't been addressed before now, and I just wondered if legally you can do it. That's all.
Well, it's been addressed by the governor, and I also just was communicating with our labor attorney today, and she says we need to recommend that, they need to wear masks.
There's a difference
Okay,
between
I
recommend and mandate.
I didn't hear that in the discussion, so I didn't know that.
Okay, yep. She agrees that it is not a recommendation or optional, that we should be requiring masks.
I would point out that I did talk to the same party, and you have the most recent communication from her, but
Yeah.
I had sent her this draft agreement to review. And so it's not that I'm ignoring the advice of your attorneys. In fact, the board has said sometimes I consult them too much, but I did make that effort. So I will talk to her tomorrow and clarify it.
Okay,
But, whatever you want to do with this, you can. Go ahead.
okay. So we can always back off in a week or two when it becomes, not required anymore. So, anyway, I just like to be cautious. So we have a motion by Chockley, support by Otto, to require masks in the office unless you're behind a closed door or you're the only one here. Okay, roll call.
Would you like to add to that the attorney has advised you this?
Okay, we can, I'm sure I don't know that it's necessary, but.
Sounds good to
Well,
me.
okay, I'm gonna vote for it if you don't, and you don't need me to vote anyway, so.
I like that addition. Can we,
You're
do we
like,
need a
okay,
friendly
the
amendment?
attorney has advised,
Per the attorney's advice?
okay, per the attorney's advice. Okay, Ms. Beliger.
Per the attorney's advice, I would say yes.
Okay. Chockley, yes. Chick? You're muted.
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Zelenock?
Yes.
Ms. Otto?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Dockett?
No.
Okay, we have 5 yeses and 1 no. Okay. So we will require masks. Thank you. Do we have any?
What was the vote?
Pardon? It was
What was the vote?
5-1.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
all right. Do we have any other desperate changes here to be made to this at this time? We do have to adopt something tonight. And I find there's a lot of value to what's here. But maybe there should be some clarification on what actual procedures are happening that any of you are concerned about. Ms. Otto.
So I do think on number 2, the health monitoring, that has to be specific, that even though you're saying every employee reporting for work, that it should be every employee reporting for work daily will complete, so they know that it's on a daily basis. It isn't,
Oh, for work
it's not
daily?
just a one time.
Oh, okay.
We can change that, but they've been told it has to be daily, and I check the records, make sure that they did check them.
Yeah. I just think you just need to document what you're doing.
Okay. Ms. Chick still has her hand up. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
Want to say it's this is a big issue. It's constantly changing. I think that this was not an easy document to put together and create a plan. There's a lot of moving parts and logistics involved. So I think the changes that we asked for are certainly warranted, and thank Mr. Ains for putting it together.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Zelenock, I saw your hand before.
Yeah, so I'm just kind of speaking for Mr. Dockett. So did Mr. Wagner review this as well, Mr. Ains?
I don't know that he reviewed it, but I discussed it with him. I asked him what he was doing on his side of the building, what he had implemented prior to starting this. The difference is on his side of the building, he tells me, is he's got enough room that his people can be the 6 feet apart, and it's not been an issue that way. But you know, no other employees besides his go into that part of the building anyway. So, but I have talked to him several times about it.
So, but he hasn't seen this document, is that correct? Other than if he took it out of the packet?
Are we still on 7?
Yep, we are.
I didn't make a point of running it past him. I ran it past the attorneys.
Okay. Okay. And then I guess one concern I do have is, the public restroom.
Yeah.
I would like to get certainly an answer to how to address that. Or if it needs to be addressed, I don't know.
I would mention one other thing that just brought to my mind. The staff are cleaning not only their own desk area, but the common areas within the side of the building. And they've been very dedicated by that. And they're also cleaning the restrooms that they use, as I have been cleaning the restroom too. So the staff has come together and they're doing a good job, I think, making sure that it's done. They don't want to get the virus. They're doing everything they can, I think, to avoid it.
I have one more question, Madam Chair.
Okay, go ahead, Ms. Zelenock.
Do we have face shields available?
I haven't been provided any, no.
Okay, can you get a couple?
I've not been asked. I I guess we could. What I've been looking at is that the glass across the front way is the shield for anybody that's dealing with the public. Inside the area, we haven't provided those. I can make them available if you want.
I would actually sometimes, yes, I would for sometimes my visits. I would like one. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, can we move on here now? Number 8.
We need to vote on this.
You didn't vote on this.
Oh, sorry. I thought we did. All right. Yeah, well. Oh, voting on the restroom cleaning and all of that? Those
No,
are just,
voting on the approval of the
The
coronavirus
document, we made
safety
amendments.
policy.
oh, I thought the 5-1 vote was for the whole thing,
No, it was for to make the amendment.
adding the attorney's advice. Okay, okay. All right, let's go again. So now we're working on the amended one. All right. Chockley, yes. Otto,
Yes.
okay. Zelenock,
Yes.
Chick,
Yes.
Dockett. Dockett? Did we lose him? No,
I think he's there.
So there.
he's still there?
Did you call me?
Yes, we're still on 7.
I was,
Do you,
I'm on the I was on the bathroom break. Okay, I'm back. What?
Oh, you got caught.
okay, too much information there. All right. We're still on number 7 after all. I thought we were done. So this is with the attorney's advice. We have a motion to change the fact that, well, no, that included.
No.
No,
Madam
now
Chair.
we're on,
Approval of
adopting.
the COVID-19
yes.
safety policy. That's the motion.
Right. Okay, the motion.
Amendment.
Okay, we're adopting the Northfield Township COVID-19 plan for reopening township facilities, which now includes masks required. Okay. All right, I'll vote yes. Ms. Zelenock,
Yes.
Ms. Otto,
Yes.
Ms. Chick,
Yes.
Ms. Beliger.
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Dockett.
No.
Okay, we still have a no. Okay, that's okay. Here it passed 5-1. Thank you. Well, that was confusing, sorry.
Well, I'd like to make a motion that the Township Board direct the Planning Commission to take no further steps to develop regulations for the designated consumption establishments, excess marijuana grower licenses, marijuana event organizer licenses, and temporary marijuana event licenses in Northfield Township.
Okay, so we have a motion by Ms. Beliger, and do we have support? I'll support that. Discussion? Any discussion? Okay. I guess. Ms. Chick,
I think that it deserves some kind of consideration by the board, considering these are legal businesses now. And we should probably decide if we want the planning commission to move forward with looking at any of them or all of them.
okay. Ms. Otto?
I do think that all we're asking is for recommendations from the Planning Commission. I don't think that we are asking for us to vote on these.
That's correct. The motion is, I move the Township direct the Planning Commission to take no further steps to develop regulations for, and then I listed all 4. So in other words, the Planning Commission would not need to be tasked with creating ordinances for these 4.
Right.
Spending their time on it. That was the motion.
Okay. And I guess I'll put my 2 cents in is that I'd like to see some of the other businesses get established and see how they work out before we would consider anything further. So I definitely am in support of the motion to take no further steps. Okay, we have Miss Chick.
So my concern is that we're, again, kind of need details and not even considering or discussing what the businesses are before we decide not to vote on or pass them off to the planning commission.
Ms. Zelenock.
I would just like, as one board member here, to remember that there were 2 votes on marijuana in our township. One was a general vote and it approved by our voters. One was a vote to ban establishments, which failed. So I think personally, I will be taking notice of how our residents have voted twice,
Okay,
regardless. of
Ms.
my-
Beliger.
It's a point.
Are
If
we
the public,
voting on
if the public
something on-
wishes,
No, we're
Yes,
not
if the-
voting quite yet. Ms. Beliger has a comment.
if the public wishes to include these in the township, perhaps they could exercise their rights and place it on a ballot if they wish to include these in the township.
They voted for all marijuana, for marijuana businesses. These are marijuana businesses.
Okay. We ready to vote? Okay.
What are we voting on?
We're voting on Ms. Beliger's motion to ask the planning commission not to take any further action to develop regulations for the 4 emergency uses that are designated consumption establishments, excess marijuana grower licenses, marijuana event organizer licenses, and temporary marijuana event licenses in Northfield Township. Okay,
We're talking about the four
right,
licenses for designated consumption.
right.
Okay, those 4. Oh, I'm not. I'm gonna vote no. I'm with Beliger on that.
Okay, so then you're gonna wanna vote yes.
Okay, I want to vote yes. Okay.
Okay, well, we'll call you first then. Mr.
Yes.
Yes,
I mean, this is to not have them.
right. This is to not.
Yeah. Well, I just don't want to. I can't vote for consumption. So I'll have to vote no, or yeah, whatever way I have to vote. But I'm voting with Beliger.
Okay. Well, we'll let Miss Beliger go first and then you'll know. Okay, Miss Beliger.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, yes. Okay, Mr. Dockett.
Yes.
Okay, Chockley, yes. Otto,
No.
Chick,
No,
Zelenock.
No,
Okay, that fails. Okay. So, does somebody want to make a different motion? Miss Chick,
I'll make a motion to ask the planning commission to consider all 4 marijuana facility emergency use license types and recommend for approval or denial and bring them back to the board.
okay, do we have a second on that?
I'll second.
Motion by Chick, support by Otto, to have the planning commission bring us back recommendations, ordinance and recommendations for these? Okay. Well, I think, okay, I'm gonna say, I think it's a lot of waste of time for the planning commission to be working on these things at this time. It's gonna eat up a lot more planner time. And I know you can say, well, we get all this money in from the permits and everything, but I'm concerned about us continuing to go down that road when we don't even know what the full impact is of all of the licenses that we've already approved. So, you know, I'm just gonna have to vote no on that. Okay. Ms. Beliger.
It is kind of surprising that not only is this board did entertain bringing in the businesses, but they're now want to entertain consumption, inspiring and giving a green light to use. And I mean, where are these people going to go? Are they going to get in their cars and go different places after they're consuming marijuana in our township? I'm kind of well, I guess I'm not too surprised, but very very surprised in a way. And another thing too is maybe we need to amend the Planning Commission bylaws to include some form of statement in the bylaws that precludes planning commissioners from engaging in business on the Planning Commission, or actually any township board for that matter, if they plan on potentially entering into contracts and to benefit. Perhaps maybe something needs to be done with the bylaws there. Maybe it needs to be some kind of amendment to the bylaws. Maybe putting some kind of date or a time frame on there that you can't benefit from the ordinances that you create financially, to benefit in that manner for maybe a 4-year time period or something. I don't know. This is definitely quite troubling indeed. I'm kind of well, I guess it's,
I have something to say.
you're talking about this marijuana thing. I mean, you know what else we could do? Maybe it's time to make a motion to have the Planning Commission investigate and return to the Township Board means to mitigate different aspects of risks and harm to our youth in the township. Like for instance, a recent study by the Journal of JAMA, Internal Medicine Journal, they found that youth exposure, where they live near and they have dispensaries and they reside near them and they're exposed to the advertisements and such, there's a dramatic increase in youth use of marijuana. And perhaps we could actually, matter of fact, I moved to have the Planning Commission investigate and try to find ways to mitigate, such risk to our adolescents in our community.
It's not the job of the planning commission. They don't delegate or deliberate on morals or ethics. They consider
I
business.
think it would be the job of the Planning Commission to find out what the risks are. Risks are not morals and ethics. Risks are risks. Risks are life and death. They're not morals and ethics. And that's what we're talking about.
Okay. We have Mr. Lippens on at this point. This is kind of.
I'd like to make a statement here.
Okay.
I am not ready to vote for consumption. I'm not saying I wouldn't never do it, but until I know whose license, if the license down on North Territorial Road and North Territorial and Whitmore Lake Road, maybe, but downtown, so I cannot vote on this until I find out who has got the licenses and where they're located. Then maybe I could vote.
Okay.
Thank you.
Related to that is, if the Planning Commission doesn't know, if they do not know the harmful effects or the risks, then how can they be creating these ordinances? They have to know about the risks in order to create safe ordinances.
We have a motion on the floor, right, Ms. Beliger? Ms. Chockley, did she get a second?
Let's see who made the motion. Oh, Ms. Chick did.
No,
Sorry.
Miss Beliger made a
Ms.
motion. In
Beliger,
between. Did she get a second?
No, not that I know of.
Okay.
It's not a planning commission
Right.
item to be doing that, unfortunately. But we do have Mr. Lippens available. Does anyone have questions about what each of these emergency uses entail? Ms. Zelenock, do you have a
Yes,
question?
I do. If you could explain a little bit more on the consumption and the licensing of it, because when I read it, it seemed like you already have to have a retail distribution or dispensary. And then would this be on top of that, is how I read it? And how would that work? If you gave out another retail dispensary, would that be just for the consumption to have both? I was a little confused on how the licensing would work.
Go ahead, Mr. Lippens.
Or didn't fully understand.
So
I had my assumptions on it.
it's my understanding that if you hold a consumption establishment license, you are not able to also sell adult use marijuana like a retail establishment would, unless you also hold that license or you also hold a micro business license. So I think it is, you're not prohibited from holding multiple licenses,
Right.
but the consumption license doesn't imply that you must have one of those other licenses as well.
Right. Okay. But you could have a retail dispensary and then on top of that, get a consumption for that establishment.
I believe that you could, but I don't think we've seen any of these yet.
Right, right.
I'm not aware of any of these licenses being granted. That doesn't mean that they haven't yet. It's just like the other uses, it's a new thing. The one thing that I did want to make a comment on was just to remind the board that the board made a motion last fall for Planning Commission to investigate this issue. And Planning Commission instructed me to put together a good amount of information. And then prior to the Planning Commission acting on anything, they've asked the board for this feedback. So essentially the board or the Planning Commission doesn't want to proceed without some input from the board on these uses, which is why this is on your agenda this evening. And in terms of just also to remind the board, which I'm sure everyone knows, but I think this is also good for the benefit of the public who is attending this meeting. It's important to also point out the State Zoning Enabling Act delegates the authority to develop a master plan and then to be the first voice in the zoning ordinance process. To the Planning Commission, and they make their recommendation to you. So the action we're asking you to take tonight is really a result of something you've already requested. And they want to know if they should proceed. So I'm introducing that as I would have at the beginning of the conversation as well. So.
Thank you.
Like another one too. So could you explain the excess grow and how much would that be?
I have a question when it's my turn.
Okay.
So when I read it, it was like, okay, you'd already have stacked licenses, my understanding, and you'd have 5 of them, and then you would go for an excess grow. And I don't recall like the amounts and how that would actually work.
How
many would you get? You already have 5. How many more could you get? So I didn't.
I'm gonna have to check on that,
Okay.
and we'll come back to that because I have it in another memo. So.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Chick?
So on the consumption, the argument is, of course, that people go to a restaurant or they go to a bar and they sit and they drink and they leave after consuming on site. So what is the difference between consuming on site of marijuana? Just stating the argument.
Right. Don't forget Mr. Dockett, Miss Chockley.
Oh, okay. I think I understand what consumption means. It means you can go there and consume the drug and walk out and get in your car and go home, hopefully. Now, this last one, temporary marijuana event license. Now, is that like akin to a hash bash? I mean, it's a temporary event license for marijuana. So that tells me about maybe a big party outside somewhere in a park or something. They're going to have a hash bash. That's the way it looks to me. That's why I'm so confused about this. I'm not going to vote for it till I can understand a little bit more about it. However, I'm for the marijuana, but I'm not for consumption and a hash bash. So thank you.
Okay, I mean, Miss Otto.
So I wanted to apologize for leaving the meeting. My VPN went out and it froze everybody. So I had to hop off and hop back in. The question I have is, do we know if there are any licenses yet for marijuana event organizers and events? And are there any other licenses for the excess marijuana grower licenses or the designated consumption? I think you already answered that one, but this is to Paul Lippens. Do we know if there's other, if anybody has done the other permits?
Go ahead, Mr. Lippens.
Oh, yep, I'm unmuted. First to Treasurer Zelenock's question, the excess grower's license is 2,000 plants.
Okay.
So if you get that, it's a license to allow you to grow 2,000 extra plants.
Thank you.
Thank you. In the information that we prepared for Planning Commission, we found a couple ordinance examples, and I'm sure there's others, but we like to find a good sample, so we included 4 sample ordinances. Each had taken a different approach, but Grand Rapids, Westland, City of Buchanan, and the City of Cadillac were included as examples. And the temporary event licenses were permitted in the Grand Rapids ordinance and the City of Buchanan ordinance. This information was, I think, shared following Planning Commission meeting when they asked us to send out that broader packet. And then in your packet, in the memorandum that I have, I included a link to that Planning Commission packet because it was over 80 pages of material. But it includes the body of all those ordinances. Now, like I said, I don't know if there has been an event in Grand Rapids or an event in the City of Buchanan yet. But I do know that we do have an open application from someone who's interested in having us add that to our zoning ordinance. We have not processed that application yet, in part because we've been working through public hearing requirements. But also, since Planning Commission asked for the board feedback, I thought it was appropriate to get the board feedback before scheduling that public hearing as well. But just so the board knows, we do have an active application, which means there are people interested in doing these kinds of events that are, lobbying and looking for places that might be open to holding them.
So to answer Dockett's question, is it like hash bash, kind of, sort of?
I think kind of, sort of.
Yeah, I know. You know what happens when I ask a question? She don't ask Lippens to answer it, but when somebody else asks a question, then she gives Lippens to answer it. So I don't think Mr. Lippens wants to answer the question that I or else the supervisor don't want to ask him when I ask a question. Thank you.
I apologize, Mr. Dockett, if it was an oversight.
Yeah, Trustee Dockett, of course, I want to answer your questions as well. I just kind of wait until someone calls on me and I have an opportunity to speak. But you are, I think, fairly correct in the comparison to something like hash bash. I think I would, in Northfield Township, I would say it probably would be more like your pond hockey event, though. It'd be something you'd have to regulate, potentially fence off. You'd have to kind of require proper insurance. So there's a lot to go into thinking about it, and we realized that there would be some administrative concerns and considerations there as well.
Does this have to be at a licensed property, or can it be anywhere? When they have these events, does it have to be on the property that has the license, or do they rent a field somewhere and and have a party? That's what I can't understand.
If the township wants to pursue it, you have the ability to control all of those things. So in the zoning ordinance, we could control which districts these could be considered in. We could control the time of year. There's lots of things that we could do to control it. I think one of the considerations is what would make these different from other type of temporary events, and should we modify other temporary events requirements or not? So there are a lot of things to consider. But the township certainly has the ability to control those things. And if you wanted to make a motion that says, we want planning commission to consider, for instance, not allowing these downtown or not allowing these in the AR district and allowing them downtown, those are the types of things that you could ask planning commission to feedback to consider.
Or we could not have it at all.
Right.
Exactly. That's what we're at.
Okay, Ms. Chick has her.
Thank you for answering my question.
Okay, Ms. Chick has her hand up.
Yeah, I think that calling it a hash bash is a really wrong interpretation of what it is. We actually had someone come to one of our meetings back in the day and explain what it was, and it was more like in an enclosed structure, a building, a barn, and more like a banquet event or like a wedding event, only no wedding. It's an indoor gathering. They serve food. They serve whatever product they're going to use there. It's enclosed. Or they can have concerts and have music. So it's not a bunch of people sitting out on the lawn smoking a joint.
Okay. So we have banned tobacco from all restaurants, and you can't go in a restaurant and smoke anymore. But here we are talking about events where in a confined space where everybody's got to breathe it. I suppose you wouldn't even go there unless you were willing to risk your life.
There's edibles.
Breathing that.
Smoking.
Edibles are another thing, but these events are going to be smoking, right? You could have a tasting event, right?
Right.
Or you could taste this kind or whatever.
It doesn't mean they're smoking.
In an enclosed,
should be investigating it.
in an enclosed place, though. They're not, people aren't going in and just eating it, right? They're going in and smoking it, right? And then,
it's like a wine tasting.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a wine tasting, only it's not wine.
Yep.
Making me laugh.
Well, anyway, I think we're just going down a bad road.
We call the question.
Yep.
So the
Motion by Chick and
permit the.
Right.
Can you please reread the motion, please? It's been a while.
Yeah, please do that. It's Miss Chick, right?
My motion was to ask the planning commission to consider the 4 marijuana facilities, emergency use license types, and bring the information back to the board for approval or denial.
Okay, and who supported that?
Otto.
I did.
Okay.
So
All right.
Basically, this is the opposite of the Beliger motion.
Yes, it is. It is.
So I'm going to vote no.
Okay.
I did not understand the motion.
The motion is to let.
Ms. Chick, I can't understand when Ms. Chick speaks, her phone and my phone don't get along. I can't understand anything she says.
Okay. So Ms. Chick's motion is like in the packet that you got, page 2. The motion in favor of having the planning commission continue the process of developing regulations for the following uses in Northfield Township, and that's the designated consumption establishment, the excess marijuana grower license, the marijuana event organizer license, and the temporary marijuana event license. That was motion by Chick and support by Otto. Roll call vote now. Zelenock,
Yes.
Otto,
Yes.
Chick,
Unmute.
unmute, Chick.
Unmute.
Sorry, my dog was barking. Yes.
Okay, Beliger,
No.
Chockley, no. Dockett.
Premature, no.
Okay, so that one failed too.
All right, moving
Okay,
on.
so two failures. I guess we'll
Move
have to
on.
talk about it another time. Okay. Let's move on. Thank you, Mr. Lippens.
Thank you very much, Supervisor. I'm going to sign off and everyone have a good meeting.
Okay,
You too, Paul. You have a good night.
all right.
To approve the liability insurance contract renewal.
Yes, Ms. Chockley, again, who is running this meeting?
Yeah, I would
Is
like
it your
to
meeting?
make a more complete motion at the bottom.
No, Ms. Chockley, I believe you need to introduce the agenda items, please.
Yeah, the agenda item is for our liability insurance contract and property insurance
Thank you.
with Barron's Hendricks Stewart Insurance Agency.
Make a
So,
motion, then we can discuss it.
yeah, make the okay, Chockley. Who wants to second it?
I will
will.
second.
Okay, Miss Otto. Authorize and direct Township Manager Ains to sign the necessary documents on behalf of Northfield Township required to extend our commercial liability and property insurance coverage from July 1st, 2020 to June 30th, 2021. Annual rate $107,181. Okay, do we have
U.S. funds.
yes, US funds. Okay, do we have any discussion on this one? Any
We
questions?
talked to any, yeah, did we talk to any other insurance companies?
Well, we made a 3-year, well, Mr. Ains can speak to this, I guess. Mr. Ains, go ahead.
You approved a 3-year contract with this company,
Okay.
and they're coming back to you. This is the 3rd year of the contract,
Mhm.
and they're telling you that you've had such good success in your coverage by not having a lot of claims that even though the total premium you'll see on the back page of this at the bottom, the total premium is looking at $119,432, but they're giving you a credit of $12,251, so your net cost is $107,181. If you look to the left, that means it's a decrease from what you paid last year, which is also a further decrease from what you paid the first year. So it's a decreasing amount that you're having to pay for the same type of coverage.
Well, I guess I'm confused. So basically, I'm sorry. Basically, we're just saying you can sign the contract for the decrease?
Yes.
I guess that would have been a simple way to put it. And then that next year, we would go out and get a bid.
Next year you get more quotes or new
Thank you.
quotes.
You would have to get new quotes.
All right, so that's all. I just needed to say that you have to sign a contract to accept the decrease of the premiums.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Any more questions? Okay, we're gonna vote. Beliger,
Yes.
Chockley, yes. Chick?
Unmute.
Yes.
Miss Zelenock,
Yes.
Otto,
Yes.
Dockett.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Passes 6-0. All right. I'd like to bring up the county cleanup day. I'd like to make a motion to approve the usual contribution of $2,000 toward this year's county cleanup day and to allow lunch to be provided to the events volunteers, which we could probably still use more, all you people out there.
I support.
Your practice. Okay, so Chockley.
Support by Beliger.
Support by Beliger.
Do we want to put an amendment in there saying the limit of the maybe $100 for lunch or something of that nature?
Well, I don't know how much they usually spend, but I can't imagine it being that amazing. It's pizza,
Right.
usually, and
It's
pop.
good pizza.
Okay. Well, I don't know. So if you only give half a slice of pizza to all the volunteers, I'm gonna let Jennifer figure that out.
Okay, very good.
Really, I'm not gonna amend that, so.
And thank you for the information. Jennifer did some information on that and determined that it was not double dipping as regards to taxpayer money. The event is not funded from taxpayer money originally, and they take donations from the municipalities, and they get some money from a tip from the evidently the landfill or so forth.
Right. And the county pays for the rest of that, so. All right.
I just have a question, Madam Chair.
Yes, go ahead, Ms. Zelenock.
I was just wondering, how is it like feeding people with food with, the coronavirus going on? I mean, I don't know how that works.
I don't know. They'll probably say, okay, you all sit this far apart. It's outdoors.
Okay, I know that. No, we're gonna collect all the tax and put it
Yeah,
inside.
but it's
Right.
like sharing of the same pizza.
Oh,
Well, I was just wondering how that would work, just like a buffet start. So that's just a precaution, I guess.
sure. I won't be around for that, but, unfortunately this year, but
Yeah,
I've taken advantage of it many years and,
I know. I just, I don't know what the protocols would be now because of the coronavirus. I guess that would be my.
yeah.
just
Yeah, I'm
wondering.
sure they'll be pretty careful about that. One thing I do, let's vote for this and then I want to tell you something else about it. Okay. Roll call unless there's more questions.
I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
I want to know about the 28,950. Now that is for all locations of Washtenaw County
Let me
that
see.
they're going to have. That's what it costs the county to put on 3 or 4 of these pickups. Is that correct?
I can't speak to that. It's either this one here.
James could.
The second line from the bottom of the second paragraph.
Yep, I see it.
It says 28,950 donated grants and other support reduces the cost of about 40%.
Mhm.
So I would imagine that's for all the events that they do,
I don't know.
not just for one day, certainly, not just for Whitmore, not for just the one they do for us.
I don't
It
know.
couldn't be 20. Well, I don't think it could be 28,000 for just us, but that's the question that I do believe that we shouldn't leave this, allow lunch to be provided by the event volunteers. I believe we should have some kind of a price in there. That doesn't, what did we pay last year?
For lunch? I don't know. It might show up in our budget. That's a question that would have been appropriate prior to the meeting, but I'm sure we can find that out for you.
Well, it's not, but you want to vote on it now. I mean, you want to put a price.
If you'd have called earlier today, we might have had that number for you.
Well, I didn't even get the budget until this afternoon, for Christ's sakes.
But you got the packet.
The revised budget I was supposed to get last Thursday. I didn't get it till this afternoon.
Okay, but
The manager. How can I read all this stuff and call you up ahead of time and find out? I'm asking the question now.
Okay.
Well,
I mean, it
I
seems
could
like
move to-
seems like it should be pretty easy to put
could move
something
to-
in there.
I'll move to amend the motion to cap the lunch The amount spent for lunch to not exceed $150.
Okay, I'll go for that.
Okay, so we have an amendment first.
Vote on the amendment, Ms. Chockley.
Exactly, from Beliger and supported by Dockett to cap the lunch amount at $150. Okay, any discussion on that one? Okay, Ms. Chick.
I just want to say those volunteers work really hard out there in the heat doing heavy lifting. And I think it's kind of petty to be about the cost of a lunch.
I'll agree.
Agree, Ms. Chick.
Okay, are we ready to vote? Okay. Zelenock,
No.
Chockley,
We're voting,
no, Otto.
we're voting on the amendment,
We're
correct?
voting on the amendment, yeah.
Thank you.
So Chockley, no, Otto?
I'm abstaining because I'm volunteering on that day.
Thank you for volunteering. Okay, Ms. Chick?
No.
Okay, Beliger?
Yes.
Okay, Dockett?
Yes.
Okay, so we had 2 yeses and 1, 2, 3 noes and 1 abstain. Okay. And
So,
that failed.
Ms. Otto, so now if I go volunteer, what happens? I guess it's after the fact.
I just didn't want to feed myself.
Yeah, I got it.
I wasn't planning on eating anyway, so.
Okay, so that failed. Thank you. All right, let's vote on the main motion then. Chick,
Yes.
Otto,
This is the main motion
The main motion to give
to
'em
approve the
$2,000.
$2,000, yes.
yes. Zelenock,
Yes.
Chockley, yes. Beliger,
Yes.
and Dockett.
No.
Okay. 5-1.
It would have been nice to have a cap on the lunch amount, and that was all we were searching for, was a cap on that.
Right.
Could have been $500. You guys could change, the number could be anything.
Well, they won't be serving filet mignon, I'll tell you. So
You never
Right.
know. If I was
Depends
in
on how many
Find
people-
out what was spent last year.
Pardon?
It would have been good, Ms. Bellinger, to have the number of what, and ask the question of what was spent last year, then you'd have the answer.
Yep, that could have, we could have known that, but I don't think it was extravagant. Okay, the next, oh, and so the other thing is we have traditionally put yard signs out. Like Monday, Sunday, Monday before the Saturday, so that all of our township knows about this. Well, and I usually put them out, but I'm not gonna be able to do that. Can any board members come in and get some yard signs from Ms. Carlisle and she'll direct you to where to put them? That would be awesome.
So, and what day are you looking for us to come get them?
Tomorrow. I mean, you might as well give the public enough time to notice them. But they say like Saturday or something, it'll say
Wow.
cleanup
seems
day
like-
Saturday.
Okay, sure, tomorrow's a good day. I'll be in.
Mhm.
Yeah, you can do it Thursday. Okay, just, I'll send Jennifer a note and she'll be able to get in touch with you. And
Are you gonna put one on your property, Mr. Dockett?
What was that?
You gonna put a sign on your property for the cleanup? I'll
I
drop
did,
it
I
off.
can't understand. I can't understand.
So are you one of the places that we put a sign on for your, the cleanup?
My place put a sign up?
yes,
Yes, no problem.
okay,
Awesome.
good.
Put up all the signs you want.
Okay, good. I mean,
Except for sale sign, you can't put that up.
oh, okay.
Oh, darn.
All right. Next item
Okay.
is, well, we're moving on here. Next item is the MTA membership renewal. And our membership is coming up. And the question, well, is to get one of these educational options. Mr. Ains, would you like to speak to this item?
This
Can
is
I ask a
something new
question?
that, sure.
Can I please ask, is this in addition to the current dues and the current format we have, or is this something different altogether? In other words, is this in addition to what we have on top of it or in place of it?
Let's let
It's on
Mr.
top of
Eames
it.
speak to that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
It would be on top of that. On the page with the dues invoice, it's the second from the back. It has that your annual dues and charges are $59.90, $5,990. And then they've come up with this idea of instead of having you sign up for individual courses and paying for those, that they would be better off and you'd be better off if they did it by packages. So they've got 3 different levels. You can still do it where we sign up for whichever courses and pay for it separately. You don't have to go with any of these, but if you want to, and you think you get enough of both the staff and the members of the boards and commissions to go, you would save money on getting the group. And it's all over the computer. It's not an actual, physical location they would be going to. It'd be an online webinars.
Mhm.
My phone is beeping.
Oh,
Almost
I
done.
may lose you.
okay.
I have a question, if I could, please. Is there anything less than the current membership that we could have, that we could entertain signing up for, where maybe we get the magazine, but yet we can still sign up for those classes? In other words, there is something less than $6,000.
My understanding is this is their standard rate for any membership. It's a formula that they have as to how they calculate how much your dues would be.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. And
It's by population, isn't it?
yes.
By
that was
revenue,
by
isn't it
Taxable
too?
value.
Taxable value.
Yeah, it's on the last page at the bottom. It's how they calculate it.
Well, I'd just like to make a motion that we just renew the contract.
Mhm.
Well, let's do that part of it then. I
Okay.
would like to consider the packages. And so,
My motion is that we renew the contract as is the membership fee.
the membership fee as is, okay. I see an optional legal defense fund contribution. Are you including that?
What do we pay now?
Well,
I'm
our
just
annual
saying,
dues payment is $58.15.
that's what that's my motion is that we keep what we have.
Okay, and I don't know if we've ever paid the legal defense.
Yeah, I don't think we ever did.
Okay,
So the motion is for 5,815?
Yes,
And
thank you for adding that cost.
yeah, okay. So we have a motion to renew our annual dues at $58.15.58.
Thank you.
So can I, and I'll support, but can I ask one question?
Sure.
Just, if we just do the annual dues,
Mhm.
we'd have to pay per, we would have to pay per,
Class,
okay.
yeah. Okay, so let's vote on that unless anybody has questions. Okay,
So we're not gonna vote on any of the 3, are we doing them separately?
we're doing them separately. I would
Mine
like to
is just to do the dues right now.
Right
Okay.
now, we're just doing dues. Okay. So, all in favor of dues? Ms. Beliger?
Yes.
Would you say all the favor dues and then say the money?
Yes, he wants to know the amount, Ms.
Oh,
Chockley.
all in favor of paying well, I will call on you, but the dues are $5,815.58. So the motion was to renew our membership for $58.15.58
For 1 year.
for this next fiscal year. Okay. So Ms. Beliger voted yes.
Yes.
Chockley, yes. Chick?
Yes.
Zelenock?
Yes.
Otto?
Yes.
Dockett?
Waste of $6,000. No.
Okay. 5-1, that passes. Okay, now about the other part of it. I'm going to make a motion that we sign up for the premium pass for the next fiscal year. because we are going to have a new board coming on that could use the training. We have planning commissioners that need to keep up to speed. If you look at what's available on here in the premium package, it's got new officials training. You know, Lenore probably, or maybe the new treasurer, if it's not Lenore, would need the treasurer's guide to tax collecting. But there's a lot of good material here available for the new people. And I think it behooves us to make sure that the new board is well trained. So, you know, we have $2,000 in the budget for board members, for trustees, and there's $750, I think, in the budget for the treasurer, the supervisor, and the clerk. But we could prorate it and just take it out of those budgets and make sure that it's useful that way. But, you know, in addition to that, the planning commissioners would get training, the board of review people would get training, all at no additional cost. So I think it's a good deal. You don't have to send them away and pay mileage. I think it's very useful. So that's my motion, is to choose the premium pass for $1,900 for the next year. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Chockley, support by Chick. Okay, more discussion? Go ahead, Miss Otto.
I would like to see what you said is that the amount is taken out of each of the budgets to cover $1,900.
Okay, we could prorate it.
Yeah, you can prorate it however, but we have money in each of the budgets to cover would be enough.
Well more than that even. So
Yeah.
yes. Okay, so should I restate the motion?
Oh,
No, you're good enough.
get the
Miss
1900 in there, right?
Pardon?
We have the 1900.
Yes.
Oh, so I did. Okay, I get it. You want to add an amendment that it's taken out of all the budgets.
Right.
Well, it's taken out of all the departments or
That it's allocated to all of the departments that would benefit.
yeah.
From it. Okay. Okay, so I'm amending the motion to include that it's allocated to all the departments that benefit. Okay. Any more discussion on this one?
Yeah, I do. So
Go ahead,
can you
Ms.
sign up
Yes.
at a different time?
Pardon?
Can you sign up at like a different time? Can we like do it, 3 months from now?
I was wondering about that. I don't know. It might match our fiscal year. It's something
As
that
far
Ms.
as the
Carlisle,
treasurer training guide, I guess that would be needed if there is a new treasurer, but
yeah,
keep your existing treasurer.
yeah. Well, we can have Ms. Carlisle check on that, and we could delay it if we have
Well,
that
I would prefer
opportunity.
to delay it to see if you could sign up later. They may start to offer classes in person again. But I would just personally, my personal opinion is you wait till you see the new board. That's just my thought.
Okay. Well, we can have her look at whether that's an option and do
Okay,
it
that would be
as
good.
an option. But even if they start to offer, and they will eventually start to offer in-person classes, it's still very cost effective to do the webinars.
But sometimes, it's good to go in person. You get to network. You get, I know when I've been to treasurers, I met the one in Lansing and, she's been helpful. Sometimes you can get to network if you have some questions.
Yep.
It's really helpful. I actually miss our treasurer meetings with Washtenaw County. Again, the networking of, just what issues do you encounter? How do you resolve them? So.
Well, I agree with that, but I'm concerned also about the extended training that we don't provide or that people don't take advantage of. So anyway, all right. So I think there's some consensus sort of building that this might be a good thing, but you'd like to delay it for
Well,
few
you have a
months.
motion, Miss Chockley. I would just take the vote, right?
Okay, well, but I'm also okay with delaying it. So, all right, let's just take the
You can
vote.
bring it back, right?
Pardon?
You have the motion. I'd take the vote. You can always bring it back.
Yeah, that's right, but, okay. So the motion by Chockley and support by Chick to, to choose the premium pass for all the courses and allocate them to all the budgets that, all the departments that benefit. All right, roll call. Mr. Dockett.
A waste of $8,000. No,
It's 1,900. Okay,
it's, yeah, but you spent 58, 5,900. Now you got another 2,000. That adds up to 8,000 for MTA, which you can get most of it online. So it's a waste of money, in my opinion. Thank you.
okay. So I knew you were gonna vote no, so Mr. Dockett is a no. Chick.
Yes, I'm interested in cemetery management.
Okay, Chockley, yes. Zelenock.
No.
Okay, Zelenock, no. Okay, Otto.
Yes.
Okay, Otto, yes. Beliger.
No.
Okay, so we got 3 no's and 3 yeses. Okay, we're gonna bring this back at another another meeting.
I'm sure you will. I'm sure you will.
Go again, find out if you can bring
Probably the next meeting.
All right, we'll find out a little more information about the delay for a few months, okay? All right, thank you. Next item is announcements. Oh, yes. I'm still looking for applicants for the DDA and the Board of Review. Please contact me if anybody is interested out there. DDA needs to be business owners in the DDA district. Would be wonderful. And then there's cleanup day. Saturday, this coming Saturday from 9 to 1 at Whitmore Lake High School at 7430 Whitmore Lake Road. And I hope y'all can get your yards cleaned up and all your stuff out of your garages and for that. So thank you. Any other announcements? Ms. Otto.
Yes, I do. Okay, I just wanted to make an announcement that we will be, this is the last week of getting photos and videos in for the 4th of July, the virtual 4th of July parade hosted by the Kiwanis. If you are interested in submitting a video or submitting photos, please email them to me.
Okay, thank you. Any other announcements? No? Okay. All right, second call to the public. We got a hand up already, and it's Mr. Dignan. Go ahead, Mr. Dignan, 3 minutes. Please state your name and your address, and we'd like to hear from you. Allowed to talk. I did it. Okay, there you go. Oh, wait a minute.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, my name is Ken Dignan, 9210 Hillcrest Drive, Whitmore Lake, Michigan. I am a candidate for Township Supervisor. And a couple of things. One, I'm also on the Board of Education for Whitmore Lake. I just wanted to answer a question that came up earlier in regards to the crossing guard. The bill the township received for $3,000 was a prorated bill for the school year that had already taken place. Historically, that bill runs around $4,500 a year, but due to COVID-19 and not having school in session, the bill was a reduced amount. So just so that you all have that information. Secondly, the need for the basin dating back to 1988, that is true. In the early 90s, there were quite a few discussions over the need to have that as well. Mr. Gordon asked a question in regards to how come overflow issues have only been recently happening. They haven't. They've been happening since the late 80s, early 90s. I will tell you, I don't know whether or not they just were not recorded. I know that they were very rarely talked about, but they did happen into the 90s, into the early 90s, mid 90s, late 90s. They absolutely happened. And I guess the question would be, did they just not get reported back then? Did they not require to report them if they were minor back then? I don't know. I do share the concern that the bonds that the township is looking to levy to put the retention basin in should be revenue bonds. As a sewer, as an individual who has multiple properties on the sewer district, that should be my responsibility, and it should solely fall on me as a user within the sewer district to pay for those bonds. It should never have to deal with the backing of the community. The next issue I'd like to address very quickly is earlier in the meeting, it was brought up that Miss Beliger was talking about the corruption on the board that she sits on. It is on her website. I did see that as well. While that discussion was taking place and the fellow board members were discussing their concern about it, the disrespectful smirk on her face was very, very obvious. It's very disrespectful. If you're on a board and it's corrupt, you should have done something about it. But obviously, you did nothing. You know, I think she should consider taking her own advice and resign, since she's used her elected position as a township board member to promote her alter ego, Lemon James, and used her alter ego to promote her stage act. So that is pretty much all I have to share tonight. Appreciate you guys being expedient and getting things wrapped up prior to 10 p.m. Thank you and have a great day.
Ooh. Thank you.
Ooh, 3 minutes exactly.
Yep, yep, you did a good job there. Except that now I can't shut it off. Wait a minute. Okay.
I got in right under the bell.
All right, there we go. All right, Mr. Gordon, allowing you to talk, Mr. Gordon, it's your turn.
Thank you very much, David Gordon, Helena Road. As you know, I'm the chair of the Land Preservation Committee, and we did have a request into the budget for some outreach to the community and to have some money set aside for potential land preservation. The budget was passed tonight, not a single dollar for preservation. I must say it's disappointing. At least 4 people that are sitting on the board ran in 2016 on a platform that said that you support preservation. But I guess, you know, you got to look where the money gets spent. And when you spend nothing for preservation, then that shows you how much interest you genuinely have in it. What's shocking to me is that you all know about the 1996 survey. You did your own 2010 survey. Repeatedly, it's been shown that preservation is important to the people who live here, and yet it gets no budget allotment whatsoever. I don't care if you're looking to find money, you can find it, but when you can't even find $1,400 for us to send out a mailing, that's a sad state of affairs. We are going to be doing a mailing anyway, and we're going to pay for it out of our own pocket. I think it'd be hilarious if you said that you could provide other services out of your own pockets. It's not sustainable, and it's not respectful to the community. And I believe this is the exact right forum for Ms. Beliger to be challenged on the accusations of corruption that she's made. You can't just go around making criminal charges against people without naming who they are, because it sullies the reputation of the entire township. So I again ask Trustee Beliger to expound on who she believes in our community is corrupt. I don't like our community being insulted in that fashion, anonymously. And again, I raised a bunch of questions about the tank. If there's being pollution, if pollution is damaging the downstream communities, where's the evidence? don't you think you ought to have some evidence before you go and spend $5 million on a tank? Imagine how much high-speed internet you can get in the community for $5 million.
5 seconds, Mr. Gordon.
And also, the last question is, $200,000 you spent for a design on a steel tank. Don't you think that they're pretty standard at this point? 30-year-old technology, at least. So if I could get those answers, that'd be really helpful. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Gordon. Okay, anyone else? Anybody else out there listening on the Zoom meeting who'd like to speak? Okay, I see no one. Give you 2 more seconds to raise your hand. Okay, next item is board member comments. Okay, do we have any board members who would like to speak? Ms. Chick. Unmute, Ms. Okay.
I did, yeah, thanks. I understand the issue with non-users on the sewer questioning the revenue bonds, or the, but I asked them to consider the fact that they pay school taxes and they don't necessarily have kids in school. We pay road taxes, and 90% of those road maintenance repairs go out into the rural area, not into the downtown area, and everybody pays for them. All the taxpayers do. I think any infrastructure improvements in anywhere in the township is a benefit to the township. I know people say, well, I don't use a sewer, but if you think about it, and this might sound a little off to some people, if you come into the township and you eat at a restaurant, you go to the gas station, you use any building or structure, or go to the public safety building, you are contributing to the use of the sewer use. So I know it sounds a little petty, I guess is the word I'm trying to look at, but the whole entire township has the benefit of using the sewer system at some point if they come into town. We don't get to use Mrs. Zelenock's septic tanks. She's never invited the 8,000 people over, but if you did, I'd be more than willing to pay for your septic tank.
Oh, watch out. I might get 8,000.
Okay. I'm just asking people to think about it, you know. And we probably will never default on a bond anyway. We never have. In all the years we've been paying on the bonds, we've never done it, even during the worst times in the economy. So I just kind of think it's a really negligible risk for the people on the and the non-users. Didn't say that very well, but thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Beliger, go ahead.
Yeah, I have to agree with what Janet just said regarding the bonds. Yeah, concerning the revenue bond or general bond, you know, what it amounts to is if there's a default on the payments, if people are not paying their water bill, then you're looking at the full faith and credit of either the entire township, which results in a lower rate for the bond, for the interest rate, or simply just the wastewater users, which is the revenue bond. But as Ms. Chick just mentioned, it's rare that we would even have an issue with defaulting. Another thing is I want to commend land preservation for spending of their own money. That's exactly what I do believe. With a lot of people interested in engaging in land preservation voluntarily, it will grow to be a strong unit. It can be an agency on its own. And I think that would be, I would think that'd be commendable. I also want to thank Mr. Dignan for sharing information regarding the basin and the fact that there has been overflow events in the past that he seems to be aware of from his history in the township. And that's important information to share with the board and with the public. Thank you for sharing that. Wish everyone a blessed evening and a, well, like I say, a blessed evening and a wonderful remainder of the week.
Okay. Mr. Dockett, would you like to, oops. I did something.
I'm gonna just sit here until 10 o'clock because
oh. Sorry, Mr. Doe.
I have nothing to say.
Oh, you have nothing to say. Oh my gosh. Okay, that's fine. Ms. Zelenock.
So I would just like to say, and Ms. Chick, I understand, on the sewer basin, it's just like, I feel like I'm co-signing. So if I go and get my septic tank, I won't have you pay for it, but I might have you co-sign for it. So, and that's my thought, is it should be revenue bonds, because I think this is just the start of improvements that are going to be needed at the sewer plant. The next will be lines for another maybe $3 million. And I think the users need to understand that they are paying for their septic, just as I had to put my septic in my house. So I paid for it at that point in time.
Okay.
So as far as land preservation, I just think it's an afterthought, and it shouldn't be. I think if you drive, certainly if you haven't driven by the Wolford's land, you should drive by it. It is absolutely stunning. It looks incredible. I was pretty amazed. And then as far as the accusations of corruption, that is just intolerable. And from a community perspective, we should be outraged. I am outraged as a candidate, but our fellow community residents should be extremely outraged. An accusation completely baseless, nothing other than end corruption. Well, let's get examples. And I find it's just unacceptable to be downgrading your community and say end corruption. And everybody that's following you on your ticket, they should be outraged as well. And the voters should take notice that you have a candidate and you have multiple candidates saying end corruption in your township. Unacceptable.
Thank you. Ms. Otto.
Yes. And I know everybody's animals are getting a little with us.
What are you guys doing, man?
I see them popping up everywhere. What I wanted to say is a couple of things. Lenore, you did bring up the Wolford's property, and unfortunately, I learned last week that they are moving out of our community.
I know they are.
So while we did this land application for them about a year ago, now the property, I don't even know if the property's up for sale, but I know they are moving out of the community. So it's unfortunate, and I wish they would have stayed. As far as, I did have a chance to look at the website, Tawn, and I really do believe that if you do make accusations for people, you better have the facts behind them. Words, anything that comes out of your mouth can come back to bite you. And as a Christian, one Christian to another Christian, you know that your words mean something. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Ms. Otto. Okay, let's see everybody else. You've already had your opportunity, Ms. Beliger. My turn, I guess. I do want to mention the revenue bond situation. And if we have a default, the money will come out of the general fund to pay for it. So if we have a default, it's because the township hasn't been responsible in charging an appropriate rate to make sure that the money comes in to be able to pay that bond. So it ends up coming out of the general fund no matter what. This way, we at least get a lower interest rate to be able to do that. And I do think we should, because we will be having more opportunities to repair things on that, we ought to be setting aside money ahead of time so we don't have to bond for so much, because I think it's important for advanced planning and to make ensure your capital assets are taken care of. So that's my thought there. This board has done some things for land preservation. You know, we did put in the $2,000 to get the Lepkowski property, which is the Wolfords, preserved. That's 75 acres. That's a nice piece of property. And we did set up the committee as a board, and we did provide some money for Barry Lonick to do his recruitment of other properties. So, you know, we have been doing some things for land preservation, and it's not off of my mind that we could do more. So perhaps in the next few months or the next year, this board can do something else in this fiscal year, but I won't be around to see it, I'm sure. But I do still care a lot about this community, and I do hope that we will be able to give something back to our future generation as far as land preservation. So with that,
Can I have a brief comment?
adjournment.
Very brief comment. I want to
We're all
mention,
going to have brief comments, Madam Chair.
No, we are all doing the one. So I guess I'm gonna motion to adjourn.
Support.
Motion by Chockley, support by Zelenock.
I can mention after the meeting then.
After the meeting, yep. So roll call for adjournment. Chockley, yes. Zelenock.
Yes.
Otto.
Yes.
Dockett.
Yes.
Okay, Chick. Okay, Beliger.
Yes. I want
Okay,
to mention about the Wolfords. The reason they moved is because they could not afford the high property taxes with the home that they wanted to build.
thank you. Okay.
Good night.
Good night, everybody. Thank you. I appreciate how well you all participated tonight. I thought it went very well. And we're done by 10. Okay. Good night.
Good night.
Okay, thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
How do you end this sucker? Let's see here. Trying to quit. There we go. Well, thought it said quit. I know I did. I said quit.
Maybe because I'm still here. I don't
I
know.
don't know. It won't let me go. Hold down the quit Zoom, right? We're in Zoom.
Yeah,
Oh, here's a leave. How about this?
there you go.
All
Okay.
right.